Okay, we're going to try this again. It kicked me off. But good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good day. To those of you who may be viewing the replay, thank you. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for joining Pathway to Serenity. Thank you for joining. Tonight, we're going to talk about domestic violence. We're going to talk about 911 calls and how dangerous they are for police officers because of the emotions that victims generally have. Excuse me. For those of you who may not have visited me before, I am Janie Deadweiler, the founder and CEO of Angels in Distress Incorporated, Transition from Domestic Violence. I am also the CEO of Victoryy Coaching, Learning from Within, Victorious Intervention, Carefully Training on Restoring Yourself, Yes. Thank you very much, Pathway to Serenity. Visit our website at www.angelsindistress.org. It is a place of resources and information for you if you are in an abusive relationship, and if you aren't and you think you know of someone, there are resources available there for them. Also, visit my podcast on www.blogtalkradio.com/queen-warrior. I will eventually turn the camera around, but I want to get right in here and talk about domestic violence. Domestic violence is the desire to dominate and control the partner or other household member by use of psychological, physical, sexual, and or social environmental pressures. What is domestic violence? Domestic violence calls are often referred to as the most dangerous calls which law enforcement officers could respond to. They are without a doubt the most frustrating. Repeat calls to the same address, uncooperative victims, and recanting victims rank high on any list of officers' complaints. Their frustration with domestic violence calls often leads to apathy, which can be costly for the victim as well as for the officer. Repeat calls to the same residence, uncooperative victims, and recanting victims rank high on any list of officers' complaints. But understanding the dynamics of domestic violence is an important step in effective law enforcement intervention. The following materials are a combination of both clinical study and case study of violent relationships. Acknowledgments and special thanks to Nancy Hunter for researching the phenomenon in our society to try and help us understand what's going on with domestic violence. Excuse me. The light seems to be showing in here, but I hope it goes away. A man's home is his castle. I'm trying to position that. Okay, so that light is not there. Batterers come from all walks of life, all socioeconomic classes, all cultures, all ethnic groups, and all religions. Every 9 seconds, a woman is abused. 50% of men who frequently assault their wives and partners also frequently abuse their children. Every 9 seconds. And I beg to differ. Those are the ones that we know. But in this short length of time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, someone was abused. Unfortunate, but the truth. Women are more likely to be victims of domestic homicide when they are estranged from their husbands or partners than when they live with them. This, for some reason, seems to be the most dangerous time. Thank you for joining. The most dangerous time. Please invite your followers. Someone in your group may need to hear this or see this. Women are more likely to be victims of domestic homicide when they are estranged from their husbands or partners than when they live with them. This is because once a victim leaves, usually they have taken their power back. And this is very threatening to the abuser. Domestic violence, also called intimate partner abuse. Battering or wife beating refers to physical, sexual, psychological, and economic abuse that takes place in the context of an intimate relationship, including marriage. Domestic violence is one of the most common forms of gender-based of gender-based violence and is often characterized by long-term patterns of abusive behavior and control. It doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen. Law definitions for the state of Georgia. The Family Violence Act of OCGA 19-13-1 defines families as past or present spouses, persons who are parents of the same child, parents and children, foster parents and foster children, or other persons living or formerly living in the same household. This definition had to be put into law because a lot of people were not understanding that after they had broken up with somebody that they could not charge, they thought that they could not charge the perpetrator for the violence against them, and that is not true. The dynamics of domestic violence. Violence is the use or threatened use of physical force to intimidate and control another person. There are 4 different types of violence. Physical violence, from a push to a pistol whipping. The law is clear. It is not okay to put your hands on another against his or her wishes. Domestic violence also pertains to dating relationships. Batterers often destroy their victims' personal belongings. The real message is, I can do the same thing to you. Watch out for your pets as well. There's a strong correlation between pet abuse and domestic violence. In 1998, 71% of battered women in a shelter who owned a pet reported that their assaultive male partners had threatened to harm or had actually harmed the family pet. Sexual violence. The victim is forced to have sex or to engage in types of sex that she or he doesn't want. Victims rarely volunteer this information. It is more prevalent than was formerly thought. Victims often do not consider themselves raped when someone with whom they have been previously intimate has forced them into having sex. There is a difference. An offense committed where law enforcement officials identify the crime as being domestic violence related, which are usually assault or criminal mischief. This may also involve charges that are submitted through local municipal codes. Now, for those of you who are in other states than Georgia, you will have to research for your state because the codes change from state to state sometimes, and that's unfortunate too. Emotional abuse. This is the glue that holds all of the other types of abuse and violence together, because many battered women describe the emotional abuse as worse than the physical abuse because it never, ever stops. And this right here is where I want to add in the men who are abused as well. It's the emotional and verbal and psychological abuse that they are generally subjected to the most. It is the constant barrage of abuse, name calling, asserting that the victim is crazy or fat or ugly or a bad mother or father, or no one else would want the victim, that makes the victim feel inadequate and guilt-ridden. No matter what the victim does, the batterer will never be satisfied. Batterers cannot be arrested for emotional abuse, and sometimes, if they are married, not even property damage. But it is helpful to be aware of how emotional abuse is used to control the victim during those times when he or she is not physically or sexually abusive. Remember, battering is not just a one-time assault. It is a pattern of behavior initiated by the offender to control the victim. There are a lot of myths out there, but I just picked out a couple. It is not really that serious, or he or she would leave. If she or he doesn't take it seriously, why should I? Victims generally have tried to leave, usually 6 or 7 times before they leave for good. The most dangerous time for a victim is when she decides to leave. 75% of domestic assaults reported to the police occur after separation. It is estimated that 2 to 4 million women in the United States are beaten in their homes each year. 25% of female suicides are attributed to battering. Last night I did a scope on Suicide Watch, and I didn't really see where there was one. I think I had one live visitor with me. But I hope within these last 24 hours that someone watched that. Because this is where a lot of the women who commit suicide stats show up. It's out of abusive relationship and they feel like there is no hope. There is no hope. So the child that I gave last night during that scope, I'm going to give it again during this scope. Check on your friends, look them in the eye, ask them seriously, how are you doing today? Really ask, how are you doing today? Battered women resist the violence against them in many ways. At least 80% take self-protective action, either verbally, 40%, or physically, 40%. This is 2 times the rate which female victims physically resist stranger assaults. More myths. It's only poor families that have this problem. I would know a battered woman or man, or a batterer if I saw one. Thank you. Thank you. Are you in Georgia? Pathway to Serenity? Are you in Georgia? Oh, you're in Houston. I was there last year for the Legacy Gala. Are you familiar with Dr. Conti Terrell in that area? We had an awesome gala there last year. Awesome gala where we had domestic violence survivors. We gave them a Cinderella night. We even had one Cinderfella who had been in an abusive relationship. We had it at we were at the Hilton. I believe we were at the Hilton. I know we had to change. But if you will send me an email, if you go to our website at www.angelsindistress.org, there's a contact us page there, and I'll give you her information, and you can contact her. And she is an awesome resource there in Houston, Texas. Awesome sister in the fight. She or he must be, did you get the website address okay? www.angelsindistress.org. She or he must be doing something to provoke him or her. Drinking or drug abuse is the main problem in abusive relationships. That is not the case. You know, they say that alcohol. Okay, I'm trying to get your. Is that Pathway? It's pathwayserenity.com. Pathwaytoserenity.com is your website. Great. I got you. I got you. I got you. And they talk about how drinking makes you act out and be abusive. No, it doesn't. You were an abuser before you drank. You were an abuser before you took the drugs. It may intensify. Passes the first lick. Other myths. A victim will be free once he or she leaves their batterer and gets a TPO. Batterers are out of control when they become violent. This is an isolated incident. Domestic violence is not an isolated incident. If an authority figure tells the batterer to stop, he will. That used to be the case sometimes, but we see that they have become bolder and bolder in their violence. Gender-based violence. Violence that is directed against a person on the basis of gender or sex. It includes acts that inflict physical, mental, or sexual harm or suffering. Threats of such acts, coercion, and other deprivations of liberty. Examples of gender-based violence are sexual violence, domestic violence, emotional and psychological abuse, trafficking, forced prostitution, sexual exploitation, sexual harassment, and harmful traditional practices. For instance, female genital mutilation, forced marriage, or widow cleansing. The over-controlled batterer. These are men and women who deny feelings of rage while experiencing chronic rage and frustration. Their frustration is in response to external events. This tension builds until it is unbearable and there is a violent explosion. They do not batter as often as others, although they are at risk for spousal homicide, which is mercifully infrequent. Generally, the violent are psychopathic. These batterers use violence outside a relationship as well as within intimate partner relationships, and this usually brings them in contact with the criminal justice system for other crimes. They use violence to control and intimidate. These are the men and women whose heart rates goes down. Listen. These are the perpetrators whose heart rates go down. They are described as not having any conscience as they are committing a violent act. Their heart rate goes down instead of up like most normal people. Cyclical, borderline personality disorder batterers. These men and women inflict abuse that is frequent, predatory, and confined to their intimate relationships. Their abuse stems from an inner anxiety and discomfort caused by a desire to have a close relationship but an inability to do so. They blame it on their partner. The violence dispels the tension for a while. In other non-intimate relationships, they are likable. It is the intimate relationships that trigger their violence. because they appear so normal in other relationships, they are hard to detect. They are the most dangerous. The cycle of violence. Phase 1, the tension building. This is where you don't know whether to say something or not say anything. You're walking around on eggshells. You're trying to do everything perfect because you think that if you are perfect in all of your ways, that everything will be okay. But this is still a time of anxiety and anxiousness. Phase 2, the battering occur. And you wonder, who is this person? And there are women who batter as well. There are women who batter